the introduction then. So, hey everybody, thanks for joining this special. I would say this is kind of a special edition webinar by Ekahau. This is our Wi-Fi network design for dummies webinar. And this webinar is kind of about a couple of different things. First off, we're going to kind of focus on some kind of the basics of Wi-Fi today. Some of the kind of the, I don't know, some of the stuff that we don't normally talk about. Normally we talk about big, hairy enterprise networks, you know, like big stuff in hospitals, big stuff in stadiums, things like that. But today we're going to kind of bring it back down to earth, and we're going to take it home a little bit to kind of a smaller network. In this case, we're going to talk about home networks and some basic things that you can do to improve a smaller and more basic Wi-Fi network. And along with that, we're going to talk about our new book. We are all, get this, we're all authors now, which makes us very special. Jerry and UC and I, and we had some help from a couple of friends, we put together this little book called Wi-Fi Network Design for Dummies, and it is out now. It is available now. We will be at your local bookstore at some point over the next couple of months to sign copies. No, not really, but it is available for free on our website. And UC, do we have a link to this that we're going to put up at some point to our Wi-Fi Network Design for Dummies book? Yes, there it is. There's the link. So go to ekahau.com/dummies to get your free copy of this book. It's a fairly short read. It's not going to take you too long to read through this. And we tried to keep this as simple and readable as possible. We really wanted to make this a classic for dummies book. And so we try to just keep it simple. So if the idea of Wi-Fi network design or Wi-Fi troubleshooting or optimization or anything like that, if that is daunting to you at all, then we think this is the book for you. So we hope you get a copy. We really hope you enjoy that. So maybe last thing I'll do before I kind of hand things back over to UC is just some quick introductions. Do we have some introduction slides here, UC? I think we do. Oh, I skipped all that stuff. Do you want to go through that stuff first before we jump into introductions? Or are we just going to do introductions first? Better? That works. That works for me. Sorry, I keep moving around on you. I need to keep it.
No worries. I'm an expert at operating the next and back buttons. So
all right, perfect. Well, tell you what, I feel weird introducing myself. So why don't you introduce me and then I'll introduce you guys? How's that sound?
Jerry, you want to do the honors?
Absolutely. Yeah, Joel Crane here is doing our host, kicking off the webinar. He's one of our CWNEs on staff here. Joel, what's your CWNE number?
233. What's yours?
It's painful to say it after that, 238. I think we both put in our applications at the same time for our CWNE numbers. And in yours got processed just slightly ahead of mine.
I think it was purely
luck. I'm sure that's what it was, Jerry. I'm sure that's what it was.
Yeah, I really do think it was. But actually, I have a question for UC. UC, what's your CWNE number again?
I believe it's...
Or is that circular saw when you need it?
Yeah, saw comes on.
That's exactly what you were here. You didn't catch all of that?
No, I didn't. Oh well, we'll have to move on though since we're short on time. Anyway, Jerry, I'll let you go ahead and finish.
So yeah, Joel is our Ekahau training manager here at Ekahau. So he's going to be actually recently appointed to that role, so taking on a lot of the training related tasks here within the organization, and very important role, right? So training is a big piece of this, and ties in very nicely with this webinar that we're talking about today about learning Wi-Fi, right? So I thought it'd be very fitting to have Joel on here as part of that. But yeah, prior to Ekahau, Joel, you were doing some things with MetaGeek, correct?
Yeah, yep. I was. I did a lot of different things over at MetaGeek, but I'm still great friends with those guys, and they're still. I don't know. I'd say they're still one of our partners here at Ekahau, and so we like them a lot.
Yeah. Oh, that's not what Ryan Wooding said. He something about hating your guts. I don't know if that's like a Boise friendship thing or something, but
I'm gonna have to watch out because we still live in the same city, so I got to be careful then. But
yeah, dark streets is a no-go these days for you.
All right, sounds good. I'll keep watch out. I'll watch my back.
And we already talked about your recent vacation trip. Anything else to add there?
Yeah. Well, the main reason that I came on board with Ekahau is just so I could start with that vacation right away. So that was the main reason.
Yeah. What's your deal? Like 50% vacation, 50% work, and full salary? Is that what you got?
I actually when I did the salary negotiation, I actually negotiated for 80% vacation. So I'm actually headed back out tomorrow. So
the 80-20 rule. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the 80-20 rule.
All right, cool. Next up, Joel, you want to return the favor?
Yeah, sure.
Because I don't know who this guy on the picture.
So Jerry, who you just heard from, who gave me the wonderful explanation, and he's also a CWNE. It's a certified wireless network expert. Jerry, you just said your number, but I forgot it already. I know it's slightly more than 233, but I can't remember.
Sure, rub it in.
Yeah.
238.
238. Okay, close enough, man. It doesn't matter. There's no real difference there. But
I'm not salty about it.
All right, good deal. Jerry is our product manager at Ekahau, and prior to Ekahau, he spent a lot of time designing and troubleshooting healthcare Wi-Fi. So he's got a lot of experience in the healthcare industry. And man, let me tell you, everything that I know about healthcare Wi-Fi makes me think that is probably one of the most difficult places to design, deploy, troubleshoot, and maintain good Wi-Fi. And also some big news from Jerry. He recently bought a new house. So congratulations, Jerry. Congratulations. When do you close on the new house?
Basically a week from tomorrow. So yeah, getting them down to the wire here. And so one thing, if I can add a fun fact on the healthcare and Wi-Fi piece of it, I feel like this is not too many wireless engineers out there probably can say this. I'd be, if anybody else can, definitely hit me up. I'd be interested to hear this. But I redesigned the Wi-Fi for the hospital that I was actually born in. Which nice. I thought was kind of crazy. So yeah, I was walking the halls and redesigning the Wi-Fi. Probably one of those rooms, I was born in, 30 plus years ago. It's kind of crazy.
Hang on, did you say 30 plus years ago?
Yeah, we won't go into too much detail.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, roughly.
All right, sounds good. Well, maybe we should move on to introducing our janitor here at Ekahau. Jussi Kiviniemi, and I think I got your name kind of pronounced right.
Jussi. Yeah, it's better than what you usually do when you introduce me as, what do you usually call?
Well, I was going to say, to those of you out there who have difficulty pronouncing Jussi's last name, I just call him Jussi Kiviniemi whatever, and that seems to work fine. So he will reply to that. But a few fun facts about Jussi is he's been in Wi-Fi for a long time. He's been working with Wi-Fi since 2001, and he joined Ekahau in 2002, back when Ekahau was basically brand new. Jussi handles all of our janitorial duties at the Ekahau Helsinki office. So he cleans things and keeps stuff straightened up. And fun fact is that he recently ruined the all new coffee machine at our brand new Ekahau Helsinki office. So Jussi, I don't know this story yet. So yeah, what happened with the coffee machine?
No, nothing. I mean, we have a user experience or UX guy who's like really, really into coffee, and he bought this like several $1,000 coffee machine here. He just insisted on us getting like an Uber coffee machine, and then I just
Jussi got his paws on it and
that was that, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. But just like I would like to add that although I'm not CWNE like these guys, and Jerry has been surveying like NFL stadiums, for example, and motorcycle factories and stuff like that. I have surveyed diamond mines in South Africa and pool sites in Florida, as well as dozens of hospitals also during my time when I was an RTLS engineer. So I didn't design those networks necessarily, but I did, deploy location tracking systems way back when we were still in that location tracking industry as a company.
Nice. Cool. Well, thanks, Jussi. A couple things that we should talk about. I'll have you back up to slide 4 since I skipped them. That's totally my fault. If you're wondering, this webinar is being recorded right now, for better or for worse. It's being recorded. So you will get a link to that in a few days. Also, we are trying out a new platform. We're trying out Zoom as a webinar platform. This is our second time. Actually, to be honest, this is my first time because I was on vacation last time. So this is my first time using Zoom. And so far, I don't know, Jerry and Jussi, what do you guys think of it compared to GoToWebinar so far?
Love it. And I mean, the platform's great. What we were after, and this was all Jerry's thing, so I should let Jerry talk, but because, I'm selfish and I have big ego, I'll add some stuff. So one of the main problems we had was that the screen refresh rate was not that great in GoToWebinar. And given that we have products that, have these uber nice visuals and they kind of require a pretty good screen refresh rate, that was one of the main reasons. But also, these Zoom guys seem to be catching up to GoToWebinar in all fronts and going past them. So, I mean, GoToWebinar used to be the leading thing, but if you haven't tried Zoom, please do. And one of the things that says a lot about Zoom as a company is in our last webinar, which was our first, their maybe sales manager or whoever customer representative actually bothered to join our webinar just to make sure that everything went smoothly. Isn't that right, Jerry?
That is 100% correct. Yeah, it was well received, and yeah, I was glad to see that they were on supporting it and making sure that it went smoothly for us.
That is pretty cool. And didn't they tweet some photos or something from it, or I don't know, something happened. What happened there? Jussi, there was something cool that happened.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I must be misremembering. I don't know. I thought somebody tweeted something and it was cool, but yeah. So, but we would like to give a disclaimer though. If anything bad happens, if anything goes wrong with the webinar, we would like to make sure that you understand that it's their fault, not ours. Basically, read that we don't really know how to use it yet, but we will blame the vendor if things go wrong. So
we will, and it's also if there's any errors in the slides or anything, it's also Zoom's fault.
Yeah, well, you know how I jumped ahead to the introductions earlier? That's totally a Zoom problem. So we'll have to open a support ticket with them.
Yeah, thanks Zoom guys for ruining it for us.
Yeah. And finally, before we get started here is some of you have already started taking advantage of the question tool. That's great. Use the question panel in Zoom, and we've already started answering some of your questions. We'll either answer them via text or we'll answer them after the webinar, or maybe we'll do both. You never know. There's also a chat board there. So please get in there and wreak some havoc in the chat board. We love to see conversation there. And so we'll do our best to answer those on the fly. And we'll, of course, answer as many of those as we can at the conclusion of the webinar. So unless you guys have any more comments, I think we can hand it back over to Jussi and we can jump right in.
Let's go, guys. Just last thing is somebody asked, how often do we have these kind of webinars? And we do have these a couple of times a month, I think. So go just Google Ekahau webinars and you will find all that fun stuff there. There's all the upcoming webinars, past webinars recorded, all that stuff. Okay, so we've spent 15 minutes with the introductions here. So real quickly, so we wrote this book. In a nutshell, how did you guys find writing it and the whole process together with the Wiley's organization who releases these for Dummies books?
I thought it was a lot of fun. I mean, I don't know how much detail you guys want to get into, but it was enjoyable to boil a bunch of stuff down and get it put down on paper. The truth is I only served as editor. So, I mean, I didn't really write anything. I just kind of edited stuff. So I don't know. Jerry, what did you think? Well,
yeah, this was all Joel book, right? We just added our names there.
Oh, hang on. Jerry, what did you think of the process? Did you enjoy writing this? What did you think?
I mean, it really didn't need much editing, right, Joel? I mean, it pretty much was perfect when we provided over to you to review and edit.
It depends on who wrote that particular chapter. Your chapters, Jerry, they were great. I didn't have to do anything. There's this other guy, though, this other guy. It's Jussi, don't tell him. His took quite a bit of editing. I had to do some work on those.
His almost didn't make it in there, as I recall.
Yeah, actually, which two chapters did you write, Jussi? Which two were yours?
I wrote the two last ones, and it was this close that they never made it to the book. I think only last second where they added because you guys needed more pages.
Yeah,
and it was either the blank pages or mine, and it
we
was
decided
tight, but mine won.
Are you saying we decided to keep your pages instead of the blank pages?
Yeah. I'm not saying it was the right call to make, but, but I'm saying that's what happened.
Well, here's one thing that I did learn with this. Fitting this much content into it's a pretty short book. It's about 40-ish pages. I'm looking through it right now. Yeah, it's about 40 pages.
This picture here, what do you think of it?
It's not really representative of what the book actually looks like. To be honest, the cover, the cover is right, but it's not thick like that. So it is a short read. It's not a big, thick book like that is. However, I'd love to get like, some hardbacks or something like that would be pretty cool. But one thing that we did have happen to us, we went way over on our content. We wrote, how many pages did we end up originally with, guys, before we had to scale it back? What was our original?
It was probably about triple, I think, than what it was supposed to be. So it required a lot of editing. So when I was saying like it was perfect when we handed it over to Joel, it did require a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of reworking, and really, probably was easier to scrap and start all over again a couple of times as we made this. It seems like a short book and an easy, read. But I mean, it's crazy. Like, this is my first effort at doing something like this, but it was pretty daunting, like how much work it took to actually get it to that point, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure there's people that do this stuff day in and day out, that this is easy for them to just sit down and whip something like this up. But this was out of my it was my typical wheelhouse.
It was a learning experience for all of us, wasn't it?
Yeah,
except for me.
Except for you.
Of course, because
But
everything before the book, and I still know everything.
I felt like it was enjoyable. We did have to pare it down from something close to 150 pages back down to 40, but I think we really got it boiled down to the meat of the meat of the content, and so I think it's a nice, quick read with the really important stuff, and we threw away all the extra stuff that we didn't need. And it's still entertaining too. There's still some fun stuff. There's a nice joke about Spider-Man and things like that in there. So, but this book is available right now, ekahau.com/dummies, if you'd like to go grab your copy.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. So time to really kick things off. How about that? And today we promised to talk about home Wi-Fi, right? And with home Wi-Fi, there's probably two things that typically go wrong. Anybody wanna take a guess, either on the chat board or on the QA panel? What two things, or name one thing that can go wrong with home Wi-Fi? Yes, Jack and Chris already were right on the money first. So it's really these two things: not enough signal. So the basic coverage, what layman's terms would be a coverage problem, as well as the wrong router channel. And let's dig into these two problems and understanding them and solving them first, and then we'll take a look at a couple of other Wi-Fi concepts, and then we're done. So this not enough signal thing, it really boils down to bad router placement, like most of the time. In many of the houses, unless you have like a super big house, one router might be enough. So first problem is probably this, right? I don't know if you guys can even see the AP. Joel, Jerry, what would you say about the difference it makes, placing the router or access point high versus low, and what are the drawbacks in placing it low?
Well, the first thing is that the weird thing about Wi-Fi access points and home routers and things like that is we tend to think of the signal that comes off of those as this big perfect circle, right? This big sphere. It's not really like that. They tend to project RF kind of outward a little bit more than upward and downward, and so you really kind of want to have it on the same level, as the same height as where all of your devices are. And also, even though it's wireless, the frequency bands that Wi-Fi uses, they do get diminished. They get blocked a little bit by objects and things like that. So it's best to kind of have it out in the open and up high where everything can basically see it, kind of like a light bulb. You got an example you're going to show there, Jussi?
Yeah. Just what comes out of the antenna is like a donut-shaped thing. It's not round, but it's more shaped like a donut, so it propagates through your house like this, not evenly to all directions, but from the antenna onwards to the sides more. And of course, if you misplace the router like 90 degrees, it will have a pretty big impact on the signal.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that I don't just point the antenna where I want the signal?
Let me put it this way. You point the end of the antenna, the tip of the antenna, where you don't want the signal. How's that for an advice?
Yeah, point it straight up in the air, right? Because yeah, that's a good actually explanation.
Point it straight up in the air like you just don't care.
That's right.
And the Boise Balmer tends to say.
To the sky. Yep. Okay.
Anyway, next problem. What is wrong with this?
Next to metal? Yeah, so I think Joel actually is rejoining at the moment, but next to metal is going to be a challenge because metal does not act as an antenna. It actually creates quite a disturbance to the actual signal, right? So yeah, by having the antenna, especially right next to the antenna, it's going to have much more significant impact to the signal propagation, right? The coverage of the signal, if you will.
If we go back to the low placement for a second, actually think of Wi-Fi pretty much like a sound anyway. Like it goes pretty much, you know, as far as you can yell. That's like a rough estimate. And you know, if you shout somewhere from inside the cabinet, people will probably, if you're inside a cabinet and start shouting, people will probably not hear you very well. But you know, if you're high up, if you go stand up on a couch and then shout, people will be able to understand you better. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And you know, people will hear you really well in the same room and maybe even in the next room over. But 2, 3, 4 rooms over, you know, it will be worse and worse. And that's also why, part of the reason why you wouldn't put access points behind furniture, right? Like in this picture. So, and this is also no way to hide a network or make a hidden SSID in Wi-Fi terms. Then a couple of other ways that you probably don't want to place your routers. One is tuck your access point to bed or tuck your router to bed. So duct tape is probably not that good of an option. Not that it attenuates the signal too much, but you know these things can be quite heavy, and if they fall on somebody's heads, it will not make them any smarter. Then there's this foil wrap, like as if you were putting it to an oven. I don't know, is this because Wi-Fi signals can hurt your health or be bad for your health? What do you guys think?
Jerry?
Nice, defer that one over to me.
Yeah,
I don't really have any words for that one. I'm guessing, yeah, it was kind of the opposite of the tinfoil hat type approach, where instead of putting the tinfoil on your head, you put it on the, you know, the source of the energy, right?
Yeah, makes sense. And I mean, Wi-Fi operates at such a low power that it's, let me put it this way, fairly unlikely that it would hurt your health. I mean, the cellular network antennas are quite a lot louder than Wi-Fi.
And when you think about all of the stuff, you know, Wi-Fi is just a teeny tiny little itty bitty thing compared to all the other radio transmissions that we all have going through us right now. You know, there's of course TV and radio and satellite communications and GPS. And I mean, it would take me 20 minutes to list off everything, probably even longer than that, to list off all the things that we would even recognize in our day-to-day lives as wireless technologies that we use. So, oh, I hear the saw or the drill or something again over there, Jussi.
So yeah, let's. So we've covered, you know, bad router placements. You know, where you put that access point / router. What about you know, good router placements, good AP placements? Where should it be placed?
Good question. Let me just as it stands, I do have a slide about that. Anybody on the chat board? Any ideas? Where should you place your router? And of course, this acts as a hint. So maybe up high would be a good idea. right? So not inside your closet, but actually on top of a shelf, for example, could be a good idea. And remember, of course, it depends on the radiation pattern of the router, but not many of us know that right the top, off the top of our heads. So somewhere like that is actually quite good. But also in the middle of the house, if you only have one router, put it in the middle of the house. And guys, should we take a closer look at this? Just illustrate like a simple example of how things work.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna move my router back here, and let's put empty first. So this is a Wi-Fi planning tool that we're showing here. Let me just take some of the stuff out of the way. So just take the floor alignment points out. So what we have here is we have modeled a single house using a Wi-Fi planning tool. So for example, take a CAD drawing and automatically import the walls and all that kind of stuff from there. And as you can see, there's walls in the building, brick wall, drywall, stuff like that. I'm just gonna hide those walls so that we have a clean, the walls still have an impact, of course, but we just now have a clean way to proceed with the map. So what would happen? Let's first, how about we put an access point in the worst possible location? So I'm gonna put it access point very low, so at 0.1 meters height, or what is 10 centimeters? It's like 4 inches. So now we have an access point at 4 inches height, and observe where I'm placing it. I'm placing this access point here called my router. I'm gonna place it behind the bed. So the bed will block the signal, the furniture will block the signal. Let's see how it works. So I'm gonna put in signal strength. Yeah, that doesn't look too good now, does it? So it will provide great coverage in your bedroom. However, outside of the bedroom, not doing much. So one of the ideas was to move it in the middle of the house. Should we just do that? Let's do that.
See what happens.
So still placed low, it actually improved things quite dramatically already. You can see that, yeah, in the living room, we get great coverage, but at the end of the bedroom, we might not. And even, in the bedroom is not that well covered. But what if we raise the router at normal, let's say top of the shelf type of a height? And it did make a small difference, but it didn't still solve our bedroom problem. So either we would need to move the router closer to the bedroom. So of course, if we could place it in the middle of the room, it would be awesome, but we can't always do that now, can we? Probably not.
Maybe you could wall mount it or something like that, just outside the powder room there. And yeah, that might be a good spot to put it. Put a couple screws in the wall or something like that. Most of those home routers have the ability to be wall mounted. Just make sure if it has external antennas, just make sure that those antennas are going straight up and down. Make sure that they are vertical.
So that was one of the questions that I did see come in is, a lot of routers nowadays don't have those external antennas, right? I mean, some of these really high-end ones actually have a ton of, external antennas on there, like, 6, 8 antennas. But a lot of the typical, consumer grade access points, they for aesthetic purposes, they build the antennas internally. How does that affect things? What do you have to take into consideration there?
I think you would probably need to use the default router alignment that the manufacturer recommends, because then you would have that donut-shaped pattern go the right way. Or Joel, sorry, you were going to say.
You basically said exactly what I was going to say. I would just kind of look at the router and see like, okay, how is this thing meant to be placed? Is it meant to be, tipped up on its side? Is it meant to lay down flat? You can usually look for those little rubber feet or something like that. Usually the design of the router is going to give you some kind of indication of how it's supposed to be placed. So another one I'd like to answer out loud too is Jack just asked a question in the chat. And by the way, sorry, not to pick on you, Jack. If you guys use the question tool to answer those questions, that can help us make sure that we get to all of those. But please use the chat tool for, chatting and bantering and stuff. Jack asked if you have a router with 3 or 4 antennas, would it be best to move them pointing in various directions? That's a great question and a very common misconception. It's best to keep them all pointed the same way, up and down vertically. I don't know. Jerry and UC, do you guys have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
You agree? Okay, good.
And the thoughts on it are for antenna diversity, right? In multi-spatial streams. So that way, I know I'm getting into some of the weeds there with some of the technical terms, but the important part is, why we want those all oriented the same way is that we can receive multiple signals on each of those antennas. And if there's any delay or anything like that with reflections, they're all received on those different antennas and able to combine those signals together to increase the SNR, increase the signal strength. So, that's why the recommendation is to have those all oriented the same way, because you're going to increase the probability of, that maximum spatial combining.
Exactly.
Yep. We could do a whole webinar on MIMO. I wish we could, because it's fascinating. It's super technical and it's super fun. But yeah, to make MIMO work properly, I'm sure you've all seen MIMO on boxes and stuff. Yeah, keep those antennas all oriented in the same way. You were going to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah. Just I was going to say the same thing. So
right, cool.
Exactly right. The APs are designed for MRC and all that stuff to work. They just are designed in that way. Yeah. It's very tempting, of course, to think that, okay, the more I put them in different directions, the better signal the AP provides and the better chance the signal has to hit the antenna. But it's just not designed like that. The combining the different streams of signal just works the best when they are aligned.
Hey, back to the heat map there, you see. So one of the biggest things I think that, and this was one of these kind of, light bulb moments for me while I was kind of going down this journey and still am on this, Wi-Fi journey and learning Wi-Fi and how it works is, we're looking at everything right now, from what we're expecting the client to see in this environment, but we're, visualizing everything based on the output of the access point, right?
Correct.
Correct. One of the things that that we have this kind of disconnect, or at least I did, I know when I was figuring this out, is we're playing around with the access points, placing those, adjusting the height of those, things like that. But really the most important factor here at the end of the day is the clients, right? So we need to take that piece of it into consideration. So when we're talking about AP placement, it doesn't really necessarily matter, we talk about placing in the middle because that's going to provide the best coverage, but really at the end of the day, it's where are our clients, right? So if 90% of our clients are going to be in the family room or in the lounge or something like that, that's where we really want to emphasize and factor into where we place that access point, right? So yeah, let's say the majority of our clients are going to be in the lounge area, that's where a gaming system is, all those kind of things. We really want to emphasize that, that access point there. And that may then also call for why we need to have more than one access point, right? So rather than just putting that one access point in the middle of the room and having decent coverage and pretty good coverage everywhere, let's emphasize where the majority of our clients are. Put that radio near the clients that are going to be accessing the Wi-Fi and using the most amount of airtime, and then, work out from there.
Absolutely. And that's especially true if you cannot properly cover your whole house with one access point. If or router, if you need to make those, sacrifices, then exactly like where do you need it the most? And typically a rule of thumb would be the data transmit capabilities are the best. The data rate is the best close to the router. So if you need, super fast virtual reality glasses updates and your Quake updates need to be super fast, because otherwise you can't beat your friends in multiplayer Quake, whatever these things are called these days. I say Quake because I'm old, but yeah.
I, for one, am thrilled that you just referenced Quake, so don't worry, that gets the potato stamp of approval.
Finally. But yeah, that's how it works. And what if one router just doesn't cut it?
Yeah, I definitely have some thoughts on that. If one router doesn't cut it, then yes, absolutely consider adding a second router. Now there's some tricky parts to this. Now, if you have like, maybe you've got your cable modem and it has a built-in router, or it's got a built-in wireless access point built in, right? You could go grab another router from the store and you can plug that in. And then what you're going to want to do, this is some of the tricky stuff, is one thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to give it the same, and UC and Jerry, I'd love to get your feedback on this as well, but you're going to want to give it the same SSID, that's the same network name. So that way you don't have like one that's like Joel's Wi-Fi bedroom, Joel's Wi-Fi living room, because then you're going to have to constantly tell your phone and your laptop which one to connect to. You don't want to do that. What you want is for them to all have the same name. So that way your phone or your laptop will just pick whichever one is louder and it will connect to that one. If you do plug in a random off-the-shelf router, there are some funky networking things that you're going to have to do. Like, for example, you're going to have to tell the new one to not hand out network addresses, because if you had two routers handing out network addresses, things get weird really fast. So there's kind of some funky networking stuff that you're going to have to do. But there's some new products out there, which I think I'm going to hand it back over to you, UC, because I think you've got some slides here on this. There's some new products out here that make this even easier. So I'm going to hand it back over to you for a second.
So I think real quick, we should also, I'm getting some questions around why we're calling it a router. Should we clarify the router reference there?
I think we probably should. Yeah.
It's not really a router, is it?
Not
okay.
necessarily. So it depends, right?
Yeah, it depends. I think I'm going to split this up into like 3 or 4 different categories. So first off, there's a modem, right? That's like your cable modem, and it handles talking to your internet service provider, right? You might have a DSL modem, you might have a cable modem. Then there is, at least in the enterprise Wi-Fi world, we have what are called access points. They don't do any like traffic direction or anything like that on a network. Basically, all they do, and this is I'm generalizing a lot here, so forgive me if this is overly generalized, but they basically just give us Wi-Fi access to the network. That's all they do, is they handle the Wi-Fi part of it. And then there's a router, and a router tends to do all of the traffic directing on the network. It tells packets where to go on the network. And so when we say router in the home Wi-Fi world, we're almost always talking about a box that integrates a modem, a router, and an access point all in one box. Would you guys agree that that's a pretty fair statement?
The modem piece would be questionable. I still see a lot where, the modem is separate, but yeah, you can have that as well.
I agree. You're right.
The router and the radio for the Wi-Fi piece of it are all within one box. So it's commonly referred to as a router, just because routers have been around a lot longer.
Yeah, and I mean, depends on, I guess, when we talk router, we talk home stuff. When we talk AP or access point, we talk usually about enterprise stuff. But I would agree with that. And if it's like, if you got it from your telecom operator and it's just one box, then it would be a modem plus router plus access point all in one typically, right? If you get it from Best Buy, then it may not be a modem. It might just be a router plus Wi-Fi AP.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, the thing that you get from your ISP is typically going to have a modem built in. A thing that you go buy from Best Buy is typically not going to have a modem built in.
Exacto.
So since, I don't know, UC, do you want to talk about mesh systems or anything?
Sorry, I keep muting myself because I'm not very smart, and it's Zoom's fault, of course. Hashtag Zoom's fault.
Hashtag Zoom's fault.
But yeah, I mean, the number one problem at home seems to be signal. And if you can't fix the signal by placing your router up high and middle of the house, stuff like that, then you need more of these boxes. So you need what's called a mesh network. And then you can get, for example, from Google, they sell an awesome kit which includes a few of these boxes. One of them connects to your quote unquote modem, and then the other two guys connect to the one main guy wirelessly and create a bigger let's call it a bigger coverage area that covers your entire house. However, this meshing stuff does not come without compromises, because typically it affects your effective throughput. So it may mean that your files, while you can now download the files from the back of your bedroom, it may mean that the files will load a bit slower for everyone, including the living room. Is that a fair generalization?
Yeah, I think it is. Ultimately, nothing is as fast as a cable, right? And if you can run an Ethernet cable across your house to supply a network connectivity to another router, or one of these mesh network boxes or whatever, that's great. But if we have to use wireless for those to communicate, it is going to slow things down significantly. It's like a kind of a well-kept secret. Well, not really a well-kept secret. It's kind of a marketing thing that Wi-Fi can be as fast as a cable can. Nope, wrong. It can't be.
However, the cable, of course. Yeah.
However, I have had the opportunity to use some of these mesh network solutions. The one that I used, I don't know, UC, can I say a specific name? Is that okay?
Of course.
Okay, cool. I use the Eero solution out there, and I'm not saying that they're the best one. There just happened to be the one that I used. Eero, it's EERO. Holy cow, it worked. I mean, it was easy to set up. I just, set it all up, plugged it in, went through the smartphone app. It told me where to put them, and it worked. It was awesome. I really enjoyed using that product, and I've heard people say the same things about Velop and Google Wi-Fi and insert other mesh solutions here. I think they all seem to be pretty good.
Yep. And the rule of thumb with meshing is every mesh hop is essentially your throughput cut in half. So if we go back to our initial kind of illustration or one previous illustration there where we are moving the AP around the map and we had, the AP close to where our clients are, right? So again, with the whole mesh thing, if you do have to do wireless mesh hops, like we're talking about, where you're extending that Wi-Fi signal, you want to have, if at all possible, that wired connection near where the majority of your clients are, especially if you're going to do things like gaming systems and stuff like that on there that require a lot of throughput and require low latency. Each of those hops is going to increase the latency and degrade throughput. So as long as we can keep those, higher usage clients, near where that wired is, you can certainly get away with a mesh deployment system, and for coverage purposes, get great coverage, but your throughput is going to be degraded and your latency is going to be increased. The delay is going to be increased in those further out areas where those hops are.
So what we'll do to fix this house is we'll just put the original router, so to speak, a bit higher in the gaming room, or the lounge area, as I like to call it. Hold on. I'm learning to use a keyboard here, but I'll get there, Okay, so something like this, so that the both the original router as well as the mesh node are within good range from one another, and they seem to cover the entire house. Yep. And then, of course, there's how do I know it covers my whole house? There's, for example, tools to map your house, such as the free of charge Ekahau heat mapper. So if you Google heat mapper or Ekahau heat mapper, it's a free of charge tool that you can download to map your house and understand. It will make those nice coverage maps of your house. This is a shameless plug of Ekahau's free tools. We get no money out of this. So is
it a shameless plug if it's a free tool?
I don't know. You tell me. Me know England.
I guess it still is a shameless plug because we're asking people to use our stuff. So
maybe it's just a plug.
It's just a plug. It's not shameless. It's just a plug.
Fair enough. I'm with you there.
Cool.
Okay, so we covered mesh. So what about like interference? There's two main kinds of interference, right, in a Wi-Fi network. And what are those? It's like, first one is this scenario where people are talking on one another and thus interfering with one another, right? So it's typically isn't the biggest problem in almost any Wi-Fi. It's really other Wi-Fi, right?
Yep. So, it's going to be your neighboring your neighboring access points if you're in like especially a dense area or like an apartment.
If you're in a dentist area.
Dense area, you have a lot of other users around, a lot of other dwellings in the area. If it's a multi-tenant building, that type of thing, you're going to have a lot of other wireless equipment that you're going to need to contend with. Since it's unlicensed, right? Anybody can use that spectrum. So we have to, contend with that, but we also have to contend with your own access points and your own devices on the network, right? One of the other light bulb moments for me when I was learning Wi-Fi was around the clients, are each a radio, right? And they're each transmitting. So we, again, think of things from the AP's point of view, but all of our clients are radios and they're all transmitting in omnidirectional ways. So, we have to take those into consideration as well.
Exactly. And usually when I like to compare Wi-Fi with bars, and when we talk about airtime, so every Wi-Fi radio operating on the same channel is fighting for the same airtime. Your router and all of those laptops and smartphones and everything, they are fighting for the same airtime. And then there's your neighbors' access points. If they are on the same Wi-Fi channel, they are also fighting for the same airtime. So you're competing with your neighbors on who gets to use Wi-Fi and when. It's kind of like in a bar, a bartender can only serve one customer at a time. And it's the same thing with Wi-Fi. It's everybody else waits. Granted, the wait times are slow, like they are in the millisecond, microsecond level, but it's like one customer gets that beer at a time, and then it's somebody else's turn. And that, it's either the bartender is talking or one of the customers is talking, not both at the same time. Is that fair to say?
That's right. Yeah, that's the other big piece of the equation, right? Is that, we think of, we have a single access point and we have 10 devices all accessing or all connected to the Wi-Fi at the same time. However, the way Wi-Fi works is only one radio can ever be transmitting at a time, not one device, but one radio, right? So our access point can either be sending information or it can be listening and receiving information, but it's half duplex, right? So only one radio can ever be transmitting on that channel at any given time.
Exactly. And that is how Wi-Fi interference happens. Co-channel interference. Let's take a look at that real quickly. So we have the house here, and let's say we just have one of those dealings in the house. And now we're not looking at signal, we're looking at the thing called channel overlap. So how many different routers are working on the same channel competing for airtime? So of course, if you live in the desert of North Dakota, I don't know if North Dakota has desert, but you get the point. It's just your house and that's it. But if you live in New York, the situation is a bit different. So you start having all these neighbors. I hope they're not inside your facility or inside your home. But here's the deal: if they are your neighbors and if they're on the same channel, and here. Let's illustrate it like that. Gray is super bad and red is like really, really bad. So anyway, things go south pretty quickly. Let's actually try to illustrate this so that we make it even worse. Something like this. Yeah. So it looks really gray and broken and oh my gosh. Anyway, so the more access points you have on the same channel, the worse it is. And the way you realize this is how do you know there are other access points on the same channel, except that the network doesn't work? Aren't there like some kind of apps for discovering which channel your Wi-Fi is on versus the other channels? Guys, right? Like Wi-Fi analyzer, how's that? Anybody ever used that?
There's a lot of different ones out there.
Yep. That's a good one.
So here's a screenshot of Wi-Fi Analyzer. It's an app for Android that scans your Wi-Fi and tells you, these are the different channels and which radios are on the same channel. Without going into too much depth, here we can see that, there's a lot of APs on the same channel, but at least they're using just channels 1, 6, and 11, which is good on 2.4. But then there's this kind of a havoc where everybody is just stomping over everybody. Okay, so anyway, Wi-Fi Analyzer. Download that if there's just a little geek in you and check it out. Also, Ekahau Heatmapper will show you those things as well. Heatmapper will both show you the radio, show you the channels of the routers, and map your home. Anyway, That's that. So that's channel interference. But what other interference is out there?
Oh man, all
I'll
kinds of
give
stuff.
I'll give you a hint. The kind of stuff that makes everything just unreadable, right? First of all, let's talk about channels still for a little bit. Sorry for jumping back and forth. So I put this slide here in Japanese because you shouldn't really need anything to make stuff out of this. So there's two bands in Wi-Fi, 2.4 gigahertz band and 5 gigahertz band, or lousy sucky band 2.4 and the awesome band, which is 5. So you can determine which one you should use. Also, because the goal of Wi-Fi is not having channels stomp on one another, on 2.4, you should only use channels 1, 6, and 11 in your network, and your neighbor should do the same thing. But on 5 gigahertz, because it's the happy, awesome band, you can use any channel you want, because the IEEE engineers or whoever made the Wi-Fi standards or FCC who allocated the channels, I don't know which one it even was, maybe CWNEs can enlighten us. But anyway, the story goes that the guys were smoking crack when they were doing 2.4 gigahertz space, and then they stopped when they were doing 5. So the 5 gigahertz makes sense. You can use any channel you want, and it will work as long as you are not stomping on your neighbors. But with 2.4, unless you choose your channel carefully, you will run into partly stumbling on one another, which is even worse than completely stumbling on one another. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, because the way Wi-Fi works, right, is it has back-off mechanisms built into it to avoid collisions because it can hear other things talking, right, and they all have to take their turns and contend and kind of fight for that medium, right, fight for their turn on the medium. But if you have adjacent channel interference where you're using channels in between channels, now it's interference, right? Because now it can no longer hear and decode those frames because it's listening on channel 1 and somebody else is talking on channel 3 that's partially overlapping, and now you're having collisions and interference occurring.
Precisely. So sometimes at your home, if you know you have enough coverage, and coverage is not the problem, and even if it is, you may not know what the problem is, but just shutting down 2.4 gigahertz radio, because the routers have typically 2 radios. They have 2.4 and 5 gigahertz radio, but your client devices like smartphones and laptops, they only have 1. So shutting down the 2.4 gigahertz radio from your router setup may actually greatly improve the situation.
You see, I have a little bit of a comment about maybe why we have all these random channels in 2.4 gigahertz, why they all partially overlap like that.
Yes, sir.
I think that back when the guys at the IEEE, by the way, they're like a standards organization. They make standards for things to communicate and stuff like that. Like they made the Bluetooth standard, for example. I think that when they put Wi-Fi together, back before it was even called Wi-Fi, it was just called 802.11 back in 1997. I don't think they had a clue what was going to happen to it. I don't think they saw Facebook or YouTube or InstaChat or, any of those things. And I don't think they had any idea that all this stuff was coming. And I think it just blew up and it ended up being a lot more popular than they anticipated. So I think that's part of why is they didn't think that everyone would have a quote unquote 802.11 network.
True. And granted this, if there's only one router on the 2.4 gig space, this wide selection of channel options near one another gives you more like kind of granular way to, let's say, avoid interference on a given channel.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they wanted to give some flexibility, right? So that you could really pick exactly which channel you wanted. However, it ended up kind of being a bad thing because there's just so much Wi-Fi today. And hey, you see, I have a question for you. You've got this thing on the slide that says, consider DFS impact. What is DFS? What is that?
I think you might be muted.
I am muted.
Oh, there you go. Now you're not.
Maybe better that way. So the DFS impact is actually dynamic frequency selection.
Oh, okay.
And so essentially, isn't that, Jerry, linked to radar stuff, right?
Yeah, DFS is a tricky one that really throws a wrench in our 5 gigahertz planning, and something that we have to take into consideration. In most environments, especially home environments, it's not going to be too much of a problem. It used to be more of a problem in the past because of more of the client piece again, of not supporting certain DFS channels or DFS channels at all. Thankfully, most modern client devices that support 5 gigahertz also support the entire array of 5 gigahertz channels, including these 5 gigahertz channels. Yeah, something that you got to validate and make sure all of your client devices, especially if you have some older devices that are 5 gigahertz compatible, doesn't necessarily mean that it supports every 5 gigahertz channel. But DFS is, something that we have to be aware of. That basically means if our access points hear a DFS event where it sees a signature that matches a database of signatures of a DFS or radar would be a common DFS type signature. It has to abandon that channel and move to a different channel, or at least not talk on that channel, which would force it to typically move to a different channel. Different vendors implement that kind of process differently, but essentially the key piece there is it can't use that channel anymore. It has to move off of that channel for a period of time.
So essentially, in short, did I get this right? So Wi-Fi, since it's license-free frequency space, shares the space with a lot of things, including radar. And radar, in a way, has a higher priority than Wi-Fi. So if there's radar on a certain DFS channel, Wi-Fi senses that and radar wins in a sense. Wi-Fi has to change channel. That's what DFS essentially is.
I think it's because somebody decided that that not crashing airplanes was more important than Wi-Fi. I think it's why. I know it's lame. Whatever. It's politicians and bureaucrats and stuff. Those guys.
So, should we talk about quickly? We covered these two things, and we have 2 minutes left. So, how did we do on the agenda?
Not very good, but whatever. We had fun.
Not very good, I guess. But we did cover the main foundations of Wi-Fi. So we did cover the need for good signal and the right channel. And then there's still some interference left. In short, to cover this all in 2 minutes, interference can also be, caused by Bluetooth, microwave ovens, anything you can think of. So if there's an unexplainable problem with your Wi-Fi, you might want to call one of your geeky friends that has a spectrum analyzer to come and check what's going on there. If you Google Wi-Fi spectrum analyzer, you can buy those things starting from $100 and ending all the way to the awesome Echo House Sidekick, priced at a little more than $100. Then we already talked about the 5 gigahertz band, and that is the awesome band, and you should use that. So if you have enormous performance problems with your Wi-Fi, especially when all the kids are at home, try disabling 2.4 or just changing the channels. And then there's the whole airtime thing, but we also covered that actually. So that was the one guy talks at a time kind of a thing. And you need to maximize the efficiency of that one guy who talks at a time. So the closer that one guy is to the router, just like the closer you are to your grandma, the better and the faster she will understand what you're saying if she's kind of old and has a bit bad hearing. So that's what optimizing airtime means. And then there's a thing called roaming, which means that in your mesh network, for example, when you move from one end of the house to the next, the Wi-Fi, your smartphone or laptop needs to change the associated router in between. And thus you may experience, for example, degraded quality in your voice or video call for a short period of time. And that's usually because of roaming. There's thing or two that you can do to optimize the roaming as well. However, we will not go into those things today. But do we have a learn more kind of a thing here? We don't.
Yeah, we have a book.
We have a book, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We wrote a whole book for that.
We did. Awesome. So to learn more, you can start with our book, and then our website has a ton of training videos and training programs, and there's tons of good books out there besides this as well. There's an organization, and maybe we can write this on the chat. There's an organization called CWNP.com that has a ton of awesome books, awesome courses. We at Ekahau also have our Design Better Wi-Fi course. It's a 4-day course and really maybe not targeted for the home user because it's really expensive, but it's actually for the price you get, it's awesome. But, it's like we're talking thousands of dollars, but then you go through that and you'll become a master in Wi-Fi if you're seeking. So there's two different things. Sorry to be confusing. Two different things. If you want to understand home Wi-Fi really well, check out our book, check out Google for some Wi-Fi blogs and things like that, and you'll go really far. You'll know more than 99% of the home Wi-Fi guys. But if you want to make Wi-Fi a career, then it's a different story. And then you want to start looking at CWNP, you want to start looking at Cisco's courses, Ekahau's courses, stuff like that. What do you guys think, Jerry, Joel, in terms of career in Wi-Fi?
Oh my gosh, this is a sweet industry to be in. I get to work with people like Jerry and Jussi. I get to have an office full of Wi-Fi access points and client devices, and it's awesome. I love it. And I get to write little books too.
Yeah, and I mean, we get to travel, talk to other Wi-Fi minded people, and as said, we get to go to sites every now and then to design and help people survey good Wi-Fi networks in stadiums and hospitals and everywhere, and then we get to develop amazing Wi-Fi products as well.
And it's some people don't even believe me when I tell them that I'm a Wi-Fi engineer. And I mean, technically, I'm a training guy, but most of what I do is kind of Wi-Fi engineering. And my wife's friends, they think that I'm actually a secret agent because they're like, Wi-Fi engineer? That's not even a job. That's obviously a fake job. So
that's the first time I've heard, but that's pretty good. And it's understandable because at home, your Wi-Fi often actually just works when you plug it in. What kind of engineer do you need for that?
Yeah, don't you just plug it in? But yeah, I think as we touched on today, I think we found that there's actually quite a bit of stuff. And Jussi and Jerry, one thing is, one comment that I saw is somebody asked for Jack. He said, hey, please schedule a part 2. I mean, we probably shouldn't make any promises or anything, but man, this was really fun.
Yeah, we will. Let's say we will schedule.
Let's do another one, and maybe we can kind of target down on something specific because I mean, we went over a lot of stuff today. I think it was a really great overview, but maybe we can kind of pick like 1 or 2 things and really kind of double down on those and have some fun. So I don't know, from the audience, would you guys like to see a part 2? Focus on something specific? Put it in the chat. If you'd like to see something, put it in the chat. We'll keep an eye on that as we kind of close things out.
Yeah, exactly. And would you like it? And what would you actually like to know better?
Yeah,
I think they just like to hear us banter for like a half hour, an hour, and not really cover any content. What do you guys think?
Yeah, do you guys want to hear us? Do you guys want to hear us just banter?
Yeah, I think we lost the whole first 15 minutes. We probably lost like 800 people during the time. Yeah. We're just chittering and chattering. Next time we'll get down to business in like 2 minutes, promise. But yeah, let's definitely do it. I think it's a great idea.
Cool.
Anything going on the chat board?
Lots of stuff, and I wish we had time to stop and talk about every single one of these contents, because there's a lot of great stuff. In here. So, do we want to take a couple minutes for questions? Do you guys think we have time for that?
We need to. I mean, if these guys, we still have hundreds of people who have stayed on for this long. So, out of respect for these guys, let's take questions.
Yeah. Okay. Jerry, do you see any questions in here that you think we should jump on first?
I see we've got one suggestion of 1 hour of bad jokes would be nice. So maybe we can queue that one up for the next webinar.
Okay.
I like that idea.
All right. The next Wi-Fi network design for dummies, 1 hour of bad jokes. That will be our topic.
Yeah, exactly. I think we can come up with that.
Yeah.
Spectrum and how to overcome your neighbors.
That was one. How to overcome your neighbors.
Whatever that means.
Don't maybe just crank the transmit power up as far as it will go and just blast everything until your router melts. That's probably.
I was thinking like overpower your neighbors, like knock on their door and punch them.
Like physically overpower them.
Exactly.
This is awesome. Okay, so we'll do a full webinar about how to overpower your neighbors.
So interesting thing on that is I actually have seen and heard of people, I don't know, maybe even Joel, were you the one that mentioned this? Yeah, I think you were the one that actually might have mentioned this, of going, like if you're in like maybe like a condo organization or something like that, going around to, or like sending out a newsletter or something like that in your organization about, educating them on proper channels and channel reuse and things like that.
Totally. Yeah, I actually did that. So I'm part of a homeowners association, and the HOA asked me like, "Hey, can you write a little blurb? We just need we just want to put a couple more things in our newsletter." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so I actually put a blurb in there encouraging everyone to use channels 1, 6, and 11. And if I'd thought about it, I would have used House Site Survey to do a survey of my neighborhood and then send out the newsletter and then done another survey to see if anybody actually changed their channel. I didn't think about that till it was too late. But yeah, you could absolutely do that. If you can kind of get some cooperation between your neighbors, get everybody on channels 1, 6, and 11. You could really improve your wireless environment. It just depends on the technical aptitude of your neighbors and how willing they are to make changes.
That would be so awesome, though. Or you could make a whole survey of the neighborhood and then run channel optimizer in House Site Survey and go and leave everybody a note on. I would suggest you to use channel this, because this is what the performance difference will be if we cooperate instead of compete or something like that.
You see, if I wasn't worried about what my neighbors would think of me, I would totally do that. I would even change their channels for them. But I'm a little worried they'd probably just think I was a huge nerd. So
yeah, and that would be the wrong impression of you.
Yeah, I'm not a huge nerd, obviously.
Yeah, you're not huge.
Yeah, I'm not huge. Nice. Okay, cool. Let's see. Lots of great questions here. I don't know if we're going to have time since we wasted it all doing banter, but let's see. A good question from Eric. If you already have a router/modem, can you still put an access point in your house for more coverage? If we place the access point in our house, would we need a switch? Eric, that's a great question. If you do have an existing router/modem, yes, you could add an additional access point to your house. Whether or not you would need a switch or not depends on whether you have enough Ethernet ports left. If you've got an Ethernet port that you can plug into, then you're good to go. If you've run out of Ethernet ports, then yeah, go ahead and grab yourself a cheap little switch, like a $20 switch from Amazon would seriously do the trick, and that'll help you out there. Jerry, do you see any questions that you'd like to tackle really quick before we end the webinar?
Hey guys, if Jerry doesn't have one off the top of his head, I have one from Amand, which is awesome. I would very much appreciate if you could make a webinar with 3 or 4 typical use cases of bad installation and show the solutions. My customers don't speak English very well, and I'd like to encourage them to watch your webinar rather than listen to it. Just a suggestion. So what he's saying is, you guys shut the up and provide us with visual problems and solutions. I think that's a fantastic idea.
I agree. Yeah, I completely agree. Nobody wants to listen to us talk.
Well, and all too often, I feel like we focus on the, here's how to properly do it, right? Here's how to properly deploy the Wi-Fi, here's what the good Wi-Fi should look like. But, I think it would be great to get some good examples of bad Wi-Fi. If we can get some people to agree to allow us to show that in a webinar, is going to be maybe the challenge of it. Show, kind of pre and post maybe, here's what it looked like prior to remediating it. And then, after we resolved it, and here's what the performance looked like. So I think that's a great idea.
Hey, that's great. How to design bad Wi-Fi.
There you go.
That's what it should be called.
Yeah.
I like that.
I have a question from Klusman here that I'd really like to answer. He asks, does roaming depend on the device or the access point? That is an awesome question. The answer to that is pretty simple. It depends on the device. And have bad news, every device handles it differently. Roaming decisions are always made by the client device, and they all have different criteria for when they want to roam. So yeah, that's a thing. Putting in a different access point sadly will not fix roaming problems.
And that's like our webinar number 15, because it's so advanced, we can talk about roaming and maybe bring like guy like George Stefanik on to really drill down to it. But I would add to that it so the client device or the smartphone or laptop does make the roaming decision based on its own proprietary criteria. However, you can affect the roaming performance quite a bit by how you place and configure your equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, we're 10 minutes over, so I don't know. Do you think we should wrap it up?
I guess, yeah. It's been so much fun though, because usually we do expert stuff. And hey, by the way, there were a lot of questions like, shouldn't you guys do more like expert focused webinars? Dude, we do them like twice a month.
We do.
So if you Google again Ekahau webinars, you will find our upcoming and past expert webinars. Also, the Ekahau YouTube channel includes like, I don't know, we've probably done 100 different expert webinars already, which have been recorded. So go check them out. Come on.
Yep. Cool. Well, hey, should we go ahead and close it out?
Yes, sir. You want to do the honors?
I will. I think I know everything to say, and tell me if I miss anything. Oh man, we have like a summary and stuff. Yeah. So the two big things to keep in mind: make sure you have enough signal strength. We talked about that in a lot of different ways that you can handle that. Make sure that you have a good channel. Good channel selection is absolutely critical. Signal, channel selection, those are the two by far the most important things to healthy Wi-Fi, especially at your house where you use Wi-Fi, where you use Wi-Fi most of the time. Anything else you'd like to add before we say thanks and close it out?
Twitter?
Yes, Twitter. If you want to learn more about Wi-Fi, go to Twitter. Get thee to Twitter. Twitter is where all the Wi-Fi pros out there hang out. And to be honest, I would say despite all my fancy certifications and blah, blah, blah that I have, I would say that about 60% of what I know about Wi-Fi is from Twitter. So go follow that bald guy right there, Jussi Kiviniemi. Go follow that guy, Jussi Kivin, whatever, too. That works as well. Yeah. Go follow him and then follow all the people that he is following and all the people that he talks to. And that is an awesome way to learn more about Wi-Fi. You don't even have to tweet anything. Just lurk. Just go hang out there and just lurk. Another great guy to follow is, of course, our very own Jerry Olla, the guy with the piece of cheese on his shirt. Jolla, J Olla that's his Twitter handle. Go follow him. And are you gonna do me too? Oh yeah, very nice of you. This guy right here, potato_fi. That is me. We will point you to the correct people to follow to learn more about Wi-Fi. And we promise it'll be awesome.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen, and thank you to the entire audience. Right?
Thanks, everyone. We had a fantastic time, and we look forward to doing it again with you soon. Keep an eye out on your email. You will get a recording to this. If you would like to go through the agony of listening to us talk for an hour and 13 minutes again, you are more than welcome to do that. And we look forward to seeing you on a future Ekahau webinar.
Thank you so much. And somebody did record this, right?
Oh, we were supposed to record this?
I never started anything.
We did.
Jerry, you got me there, man.
All good.
All right. Have a good day, guys.
See you guys.